It finally happened! We can play as Zelda in a Zelda game! Yes, we can spin and jump, and we have a magic wand that summons pigs with boomerangs! And fight with a sword. And a bow. And bombs with Wolverine helmets. Okay. Echoes of Wisdom is the latest installment in the 3D Zelda series. Released in 2024, this was our first taste of having Zelda as a protagonist and playable character. Of course, this meant there needed to be massive changes to the gameplay, and massive changes there was. We get a beautifully crafted and lively world to explore, completed with vibrant characters and locations that perfectly blend the old and the new. Except the way we defend and explore is drastically different. We are stripped from everything familiar we know and forced to learn to walk from the beginning all over again. Instead of fighting with an unbreakable sword and shield at our disposal, we are gifted a new tool named the Tri-Rod, a magical element that helps us summon echoes. These echoes are a main form of defense, offense, and puzzle solving. Basically, they are the entire game, and the game itself makes sure we understand the importance of these echoes by straight up telling us how important they are, and how we need to think outside the box, and how we should prioritize gathering more to increase our power. Understandable. This all seems fine and dandy, a little different than what we're used to, but, seems fun. We know what we're supposed to do, and we are given a definition of power. Until we get another one. Only about a half hour or so into the game, we are gifted the Sword of Might, which turns us into Link. Huh. Okay. I thought we were supposed to be Zelda, but now we're Zelda Link. Z-Link, of sorts. Well, I mean, that's okay. We can only use it for a limited amount of time, so I guess we're still encouraged to use the echoes. But we are also encouraged to use Sword Fighter mode as much as we can. We are also taught that this Sword Fighter form is powerful and helps us cut through enemies in an instant. Alright, I thought the echoes were our main system of power, but kind of not anymore. So, I'm confused. I thought the Tri-Rod and echoes were the main source of power, but it's also Sword Fighter form that's the most powerful. It seems we're at a fork in the road here. A false consensus of power, if you will. Quickly, I just wanted to say, I genuinely love this game. I really, really do. I honestly love how it's a perfect blend of the old and the new, and all the nonsense with the echoes is just fantastic. But I am going to offer my 2 cents, because I like rambling about Zelda games and I have too much time on my hands. Anyway, now it's time to psychoanalyze this game. Woohoo! So this is a bit different to how I normally would analyze a game. Usually there's a certain way the game makes you feel, whether that's dread or happiness or whatever. But in Echoes, it's more of a confusion over what's meant to be perceived as the most powerful aspect, and our actions to demonstrate said power, which is labeled in psychology as a cognitive dissonance. And the formal definition is as follows: a psychological state of discomfort that occurs when a person's actions and belief are inconsistent and contradictory. And in the sense of Echoes of Wisdom, this would mean that we get uncomfortable and confused as to which way we should view power. Is it the Tri-Rod, the way the game is meant to be played, or the Sword Fighter form, a last-minute addition that never existed in the beginning? So what we're gonna do to answer this question of what is power is split the game up into 4 separate parts. These parts are the overworld exploration, the boss fights, the dungeons, and the side quests and missions. We will analyze each of these parts and decide which of the 2 powers is best suited for it respectively. And then at the end, whichever one has the most points will be the ultimate winner. A sort of game show, if you will, between the Tri-Rod and Sword Fighter form. Hey everybody, welcome back to trying to figure out the solution to a false consensus of power in a newly released Zelda game because I like rambling. Luckily everybody here is familiar with our 2 contestants, so we can jump right into the first category, and that will be... the Overworld exploration. Let's get into it. The overworld in Echoes isn't the largest we've ever seen, but it's very colorful and lively with many reoccurring but interesting regions, and a lot to be explored inside and out. As we progress through the game, we are tasked to visit each main location on the map at one point or another. Each of the major regions will have a new race of characters to interact with and help out. Most of these quests involve fighting off monsters or basically running around chores around the region. Most of the fights can be handled with a couple of echoes, and the tri-rod will be used very often in each location, as there's always a slew of new echoes to find hidden around. Especially early on too, most fights in the first 3 locations will be needed to be handled with the tri-rod, as Swordfighter Farm isn't leveled up and is better saved for other fights. So in terms of the main cities and towns, the tri-rod is definitely the option to go with, as it best serves 4 fights and the overall flow of the places. As far as traversing and exploring the overworld goes, you can try and use Swordfighter form to run faster across, but it only lasts for less than half of a minute, and it wouldn't be a smart or useful thing to attempt. However, the tri-rod not only gives us the ability to spin to win, but many of the echoes we find are aimed towards travel and parkour segments, as Zelda isn't able to jump more than 2 inches off of the ground until halfway through the game. Personally, one of my most used echoes was the Plat Boom. Seriously though, this thing is amazing. Paired with the trampoline, you can ascend to the heavens over any enemy or obstacle.
Who can say where the road goes?
Swordfighter jumpy flips could never. That's also not to mention many of the other echoes you can find throughout the game, like the water blocks, obtained at the Zora region, in which you can just stack up against any wall and climb over anything within seconds. Another aspect of the overworld is its hidden caves, which sometimes intertwine with main questlines, but mostly have treasures, which vary from smoothie ingredients and accessories that can be equipped. Inside these caves are little, almost shrine-like puzzles. They will reward you with some aforementioned treasure. But on very rare occasions do these caves have swordfighter-worthy enemies, and instead, most offer a simple puzzle that needs to be completed with the tri-rod or the abilities gained from it.
Who can say where the road goes?
I recall using a ton of echoes like the Plat Boom to skip over gaps, or even the spider-type enemies like the Carotula, and binding with it to climb over any wall. So for cave exploration as well, the tri-rod is the tool to use. And one more point to add is the option of using a horse to travel the map in the fastest way, excluding fast travel of course. Now it does take it till the halfway point of the game to get Zelda's special horse, which can be used for free anytime, anywhere. But you can rent a horse fairly early on and use the Carrot Echo to summon it right by your side anywhere. Oh, okay, well, maybe not anywhere, but you get the point. So it appears that the tri-rod and echoes take the first point. Sorry, Swordfighter, maybe you'll have better luck in the next segment. Oh, boss battles! Alright, let's see where we stand. Okay, so yeah, this is my biggest criticism of the game, and that's the boss fights don't seem to be designed for the gameplay. Now the question we're trying to answer is, which is power, Swordfighter mode or tri-rod? But the game itself was advertised and created with the fullest intention of mainly and sometimes only using echoes to overcome all odds. And this was meant to give it an entirely different gameplay style compared to traditional Zelda games, as we aren't playing as Link and we are in control of Zelda, and she's not a trained sword fighter, she's a princess and a priestess. So, why are the bosses mainly designed for spamming the Y button over half the time? It was stated in an interview with the developers of the game that Zelda wasn't the main character from the start. The story and the idea was meant to be another one with Link at the helm, but what they discovered was when they gave him the tri-rod and echoes, nobody used it because they would rather just fight with the sword and other weapons. So they decided to switch out Link and Zelda and took away the options for weapons. Kinda. Because we still ended up with Swordfighter mode as an option. And most of the bosses are designed around Swordfighter anyway, as after you use 1 or 2 echoes, the boss will fall down and then leave a large opening space to switch to Swordfighter and attack. which is often how Zelda bosses work. A specific item is needed to knock them down, and then you go ham with a old trusty sword and shield. But it does make one wonder, why not just eliminate sword fighter mode completely and make the bosses designed to have specific counters with echoes discovered in their respected temples? So in the case of boss fights, sword fighter does win over echoes, as it gets the job done a lot faster than waiting for that dang moblin to attack. It appears we're halfway through the show, folks, and we've hit a tie. I'm starting to understand this whole false consensus nonsense we keep talking about, but the game's not over yet, so maybe, just maybe, we'll see a clear winner. And the next topic is... the dungeons. Echoes does support more traditional style Zelda dungeons. A bit smaller than before, but still boasting the same types of puzzles and exploration. The general pattern these dungeons follow is running through the still world, using your old echoes and maybe sometimes acquiring new ones to parkour and explore your way towards the front. Once you enter a dungeon, you'll quickly find an echo that will help solve puzzles, whether that be the wind cannon in the desert or the water blocks in the Zora region. These echoes will still serve a purpose outside of the temple, but a few of them, such as the animal statues, are incredibly specialized to the temple and the temple alone. As far as the puzzles go, it's your typical Zelda dungeon type of puzzles. Kill all the enemies in the room, click 2 switches at once, light the braziers, etc, etc. Now, most of these puzzles are completed using echoes, except for the enemy defeat puzzles, which sword fighters better utilize for success. This also applies to treasure hunting inside each of these temples, where the puzzles are very similar to those found in caves in the Overworld, which only require 1 or 2 echoes to solve and rarely ever have fighting. So it seems the Tri-Rod wins another one! Just getting a lead right before the final round. Now this will decide it all. Which is the most powerful tool? That question can only be answered after our final category of... side quests and missions. Now, this last one is interesting, so of course I saved it for last so I could give myself more time to think. But in all seriousness, the context of the side quests is split fairly down the middle. There's some that involve the use of echoes, like the Slime Kid in Castletown, or the Gerudo who wants to see the flying tiles. But then some involve a lot of random fighting, like killing a bunch of moths because the plant men are scared they'll get eaten, or even fighting Jaws and his little bombfish minion to save a walking short-necked Loch Ness monster fish guy that's stuck on a boat for some reason. Yeah, this game is hard to describe sometimes. But the thing that stumps me the most is how there are rather massive side quests that act as mini dungeons, in which you have to fight a new or repeated boss as a leveled up variant. And these bosses share similar mechanics and styles to the main bosses found in the game, meaning they are more so designed around Sword Fighter than they are echoes. The jellyfish boss especially is pretty much just spamming the bow until the little jellyfish explode around the big one. And then there's Smog. Oh dear god, I hate Smog. He honestly isn't designed for either Sword Fighter or Echoes, he just sucks in general. But I guess if I had to label him between the two, the Sword Fighter and arrows do the most damage, and the Echoes are only meant to divert his path, so it's tricky to name which one the side quests go on, as they're all split fairly even. But I'd say, given that there are 2 secret dungeons in the game, and they have unique bosses that are almost unbeatable without Sword Fighter mode, I'm gonna say that Sword Fighter wins this one too. So Sword Fighter wins another. Yay! And that brings the total points to a tie. Okay, we are right back where we started. We've deduced that the 4 main parts of this game are split even between an agreement as to what is power. So I guess we need a tiebreaker. And that's gonna be the final boss of the game, Null. The weird little clay-looking guy thing. And then there's the end. Null in the depths of the still world, the grand team-up with Link that this whole game has been leading up to. Oh boy, I can't wait to fight alongside the legendary swordsman, and maybe even use my own magical swords. We'll do some sick team-up combos and attacks, and wait, no, stop. Why are you giving him my swords? Okay, great, never mind. I spent the whole game gathering those might crystals, but apparently I don't deserve them anyway. You know what, it's fine, I don't care, I don't even want them anymore. Yeah, I mean, I guess narratively this makes sense, because the sword was never ours to begin with, but the game makes us rely heavily on the sword for fights exactly like this, and now we are completely defenseless, except for the Tri-Rod, which is great, but let's all be real, any Echo you summon gets annihilated within seconds.
Who can say where the road goes?
And the only thing we can do is pull those little fingies until Link walks over like he's got all the time in the world, and eventually cuts them off. And then it ends, after a very long round of rinse and repeat until No explodes like they all do. So, by the logic applied before in this analysis, this should mean that the Tri-Rod wins, but it really doesn't do a whole lot in this fight. Like, it's useful, more useful than Sword Fighter, because we don't even have that, but it's not the most effective either. So, I guess by default, the Tri-Rod wins. So I guess our final conclusion is... the Tri-Rod. Kinda. While it's technically more useful than Sword Fighter and is the main item of the game, it doesn't feel like that for near half of the actual game. And the same can be said for Sword Fighter as well, as it's only used for boss fights and plowing through pigs with boomerangs. So we kinda answered the age-old question of like 17 minutes, but ultimately, there's still a false consensus of power that can only be agreed upon by each person's perspective of the game. So in typical video analysis fashion, I'ma leave it up to you guys. Do y'all believe the Tri-Rod is the better item, or Sword Fighter mode? Anyway, this analysis was a bit different than the ones I usually do, because there isn't much to talk about as how the game makes you feel, but definitely enough for an interesting conversation. Anywho, thanks for sticking out to the end, guys, and I'll see you later.